Hello and welcome to Stand Up World 75. Is it 75?
It's episode 75.
You're in a good mood today. Say hello to the producer of the show, the effervescent Kaylee Zelik.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah,
We have a good show today.
we do.
We have a very funny comedian who has a new special out.
Francisco Ramos.
I know.
Okay, I'm just making sure you hadn't said his name yet.
I was going to have a little surprise about it,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
do you know the name of his new special?
Yeah. I wrote it down, but I don't know if I'm going to say it right. Because I watched it.
We will edit this all out, her being unprofessional as hell.
It's Venezuela American.
That's not the name of his special.
That's the name of the special. It was filmed at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club in Vegas.
And it's called Venezuela American?
Venezuela American.
Is there a slash in between Venezuela America?
No, there's like a little dash.
All right. She's got to be wrong, folks.
No, I don't think I'm wrong.
Do we have a picture? Let's get a picture up. Okay, you're right. Look at you.
Yep.
Okay.
I've heard that a few times today from you. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's really weird. You sound like my wife.
You're right, and it's all your fault.
It's so funny. I remember when we got married, Bob Horgan, this old guy I knew, said, here's the secret to being happy in a marriage. You're always wrong and she's always right. I said, that doesn't sound like it's going to make me happy. He goes, it will. And that's really what happened in my marriage, man. She's always right and I'm always wrong. I was right once, 26 years ago. We were driving home. We got into an argument. We got home and I was right. I had left the alarm off and everything we had was stolen. I was right about being wrong. And I've never been right since.
It's good.
Yeah. But, oh boy, what a price to pay. That's how you're happy, by being wrong all the time.
Okay. What's that saying about? I'm not with it today. What's that saying?
What day are you with it? I'm just curious. Can you give me a heads up on what?
Long week.
All right, let's bring on Francisco Ramos and his special. Talk about his special. American Venezuelan. No?
Venezuela American.
Venezuela American.
Close enough.
Whatever happened to, hey, I got a happy dick. It's, funny, whatever happened to, here's my puppy.
And that as the name of a special?
Yeah, just cuddly name.
We can start workshopping yours.
Okay. I love this guy. He's really funny. I'm just giving you a hard time. Let's bring him on. Let's get this pattern's not working. Let's go. Francisco Ramos. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Hey, congratulations on your new special. It's really funny.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Really funny. And you're always funny. But you got a lot of new stuff I hadn't heard. I know you've been out on the road. So you've obviously been working it out, huh?
I know. That's how you do it, right? We go up in LA to start the bits and then you kind of develop them more in the road. You have more time to kind of develop them more. Or that's how I do it. You know what I mean? But
it's really funny what I found. And I don't know if you know, in the old days, the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory and the Improv were like the places you worked out new material. But now it's not. I mean, now you go in those clubs and you get 15 minutes or 20 minutes and you're following these other guys that are killing. Exactly. And you want to just knock it out of the park. So you usually do your best stuff. You throw in a few new jokes, but you go out into middle America and you got 45 minutes to an hour and that's where to me, I'm putting trying out all the new stuff.
Yeah, no, same thing. I mean, it's like you said, sometimes you got to follow, Bill Burr or something like that, or that that you have to bring him up, so he's watching. So you're like, well, I gotta do my good stuff. I can't be messing around here. So yeah, it's pretty much like that. And now it's like I do the same thing. Like maybe I'll throw the beginning of a bit just to get an idea to see if I hear something that I'm like, okay, I could develop this more, or a new tag on an existing bit. But then when I go on the road, and that's when I get the chance to kind of like, all right, I'm gonna expand this, and more of a easier to work on those bits over there than now in LA.
I have this thing, and I work completely different than I did now. I took over 20 years off from stand-up, and I did it every night from the time I was 17 to 31 years old, and then I just never looked back.
Yeah.
And then I came back, but I do it completely different. But one thing that I do is I try to go up and get a fresh laugh before I do any material, You know what I'm saying? I never like to come out and just do a bit. I like to listen to what maybe went before me, or do a joke on that, or something in the news that night, or, just something, so that at least I know, okay, I'm in a creative mode. Do you ever do a thing like that?
No, that's absolutely true, because I think I sometimes have to remind myself on that, to kind of be like, don't start right away, because it is kind of like you're introducing yourself to the crowd. It's like me. I was like meeting somebody new. You just don't start talking about your problems.
That's absolutely right.
Not even going like, "Hi, I'm Francisco." Like, who are you? It's like, who are you? I mean, you're become a homeless person at that point.
Leno told me this when I was young. Leno would say, "Don't go out and start too fast. Let them look at you. Just relax. Let them know you're not afraid. Say hello. Take a beat. Say something. Talk. Ask them what's going on. Did you like the show before me?" When a comic walks out and goes, "So I noticed dentists are funny."
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because the audience goes, "He's hanging on for dear life, this guy."
Yeah, no, it's the same thing with acting, I'm assuming too. I don't know, you have more experience than that, but it's like, even then, it's like, you can't just, I mean, I think not before you start the scene, but even getting into the room,
Absolutely.
Like, you gotta be like a person, and like, oh, this person is, he's fine. The moment is not too big for him or anything like that. So
I'll tell you a funny story. You remind me of, I was making this movie Indian Summer years ago with all these actors. It was a Disney film that I did about adults going back to summer camp. And all these actors were coming in. I think it was my second movie I directed. And Tim Roth, you know who Tim Roth is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All these actors were coming in, and they were super prepared knew everything some of them even were like, came in summer camp gear, And Tim Roth comes in, and he just looks like he just woke up. He's got the sides crumbled up in his hands. And hey, how you doing, man? And he's talking shit about the club he was at last night. And hey, I go, "You want to do this?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, okay, let's do the fucking thing." And he didn't have it memorized. He just was like, and you could just tell he didn't give a shit about it, right?
Yeah.
He did not give a shit about it. But man, and Sharon Bialy, who cast all my movies to this day, we were both leaning in every word he said, because his confidence, the fact that this guy came in and we wanted him to do the movie. He didn't want to do it. He ended up doing something else. And he was so good in the audition. And this is a guy from Britain playing, a kid from Michigan going up to a summer camp, a Jewish summer camp,
Yeah.
And And I just realized then and there that everything is about confidence when you're acting and when you're a performer.
Yeah.
You have to have the confidence that puts your audience at ease so
At ease.
they can be entertained.
And I think it's what you said. I think I always say that too. I always tell people like, or that when people ask me for stand-up advice or anything like that, it's like, yeah, you just gotta get to the moment where you don't, and you mentioned, don't give a shit. And I think it's like the key is not, don't give a shit about the result or about the, you know, the expectation, because you do have to give a shit about your performance and what you're, you know, I don't think it's, you have to at least have some preparation. It's like, you can just go in and be like, I don't give a shit. And then it just like, but I feel is that they give a shit about their result or the expectation, and that confidence to know like, hey, I'm funny. I know I can do this. Listen up. You know, it might not be your 100% cup of tea, but you're still gonna, after this set, you're gonna be like, all right, that guy's funny, or like, you know, I get it. You know, he's prepared, he's professional, all this stuff. And I think with everything like that, I think you have to have that mindset of like, I don't give a shit about the result, and that's what, in terms of auditions, you know, that's when I've gotten them, when I
That's
really
right.
didn't give a shit. And again, it wasn't a give a shit about the performance. I didn't give a shit if I got it or not. I didn't care. Like, this is what I'm doing. You like this or not? And then that's when you book them. And then when you like something too much, that's the opposite. It's like it just shows.
That's absolutely right. And you know, I was with a comic last night at the Laugh Factory, and I gotta go. I got this audition tomorrow morning, and it's on Zoom, and I gotta get it. And I thought to myself, he ain't gonna get it. You know,
Well, I told you that in confidence.
what? No, yeah, that's funny. But
no, yeah, I know that's true. It's so like, and it's hard because it's like sometimes you want something, and it's hard to not. It's like the same thing. Like I think with dating, it's like when you like somebody too much, it's like, the other person's like, yeah, you know, and it's hard to not to tell yourself I don't like this person when it's bullshit, but it's finding that balance of like, yeah, no, like it is that confidence of like being happy or being content with yourself and not expecting that. I think, and it's a fine. I think we'd always, to me, I'm always like trying to get to that level, because sometimes I do really don't give a shit about stuff, and then sometimes I do give a shit about stuff and have to remember, hey, don't give, you know.
Well, for me, the whole thing for me, and it's the biggest difference from when I was a kid, because I started really young, and I was really successful really young, you know, but I didn't have any faith in God. You know, I really didn't. I didn't have a sense of God. I wasn't raised with it. And so I don't know. I don't mean to sound like, ooh, you know, but when you have a bigger sense of the universe, you understand somehow you're part in it, which is not that big, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know, it just takes the weight off of it, you know?
No, that makes so much sense. I should tell my mom about it now. That I'm like, why did you raise me so religious? Because every decision I'm like, well, I hope God likes it. God's gonna make this. Like, yeah.
Well, it's true. For me, it is. It didn't for that at that time, you know. But when I was a kid, you know, and I needed everything to happen, and everything was more important, and it was I cared too much what the audience thought about me, you know. And I remember one time I was on stage and I was just killing at the Comedy Store in the main room. And there was one woman in the front row just staring at me. No reaction whatsoever. And I was fucking, what's her problem? And sweating because of her.
Yeah.
And finally, I just said, what's your problem? What's your problem? You don't find any of this funny? And she goes, no speak English. This is after like 20 minutes of me just like letting her destroy my head while everyone else. And that's where I was. I mean, everybody had to love me, you know, or it was no good.
And that's still, I mean, I think that's a thing of being a stand-up too, where we just, it could be the whole room laughing. And if there's one person that's just serious, you're like, why is that person? I gotta get, and it's kind of like, who cares? 99 people like you.
Yeah.
About that. And it's fine if they don't like you. And sometimes you think they don't like you, and you said it's like they understand, or like, or they go like, oh, I like that. They just, some people don't show that they're having fun.
Well, what I love about stand-up I did that Comedy Store documentary,
Yeah, of course, so good.
and one of the things that stuck out so well, Martin Lawrence said something to me. He said, stand-up comedy is the only art form that will humble the hell out of you.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and it will just, if you don't take care of it and you don't keep it sharp, it will tell you right away. But the other side of it is it's like any experience or sport or anything. Nothing beats experience. Nothing beats time on stage, Do you know Kira Sultanovich?
Yeah, of course, she's great. We have a joke about that. She has a kid, and she showed me a while back that I look like the kid. So we always have this joke, that I'm the father of her kid. But
I love it, man. That Browning of America joke she does.
yeah, she's great. Great.
Well, I was watching her last night, and I was with this friend of mine. We were sitting there. My friend, she kept saying, "She's so good. She's so good." I said, "She's a pro. She's been doing it a long time." I remember the first time I saw you, I was sitting at that comedian's booth at the Laugh Factory, and I said, "This guy he's been doing it. This guy's got it." And you can't cheat it.
No,
you can't cheat
experience and going through different. And I think you probably had the same experience as I did in terms of like learning to do stand-up in any kind of situation, when there's nobody, when they don't know you, small rooms, big rooms, bars, where you have to get them and do, just all these little things that just train you to make it look easy when the crowd is there, for you and all this stuff. And I feel like, I don't know if so, and especially I don't know with newer comics, that now because of social media, they're getting it, they're getting the fan base through this other medium. Then they come see the shows, and then people, they have the expectation. People already know who you are, and my expectations. I'm learning now to perform, because now I'm getting a little more, people are following me on social media and kind of like going to my shows. Now I'm learning to perform when people know who I am, which is so, it's a chip that I have to change, because all my life I've been like, all right, I have to prove myself to these people that I'm funny, and then they're gonna be with me throughout the whole show. And I think it all comes from that experience of just doing it so much and doing it in different situations. And then
how long have you been doing it? You've been doing it quite a while now, right?
So 15 years pretty much.
Wow.
I started at the Comedy Store. I work as a door guy there, and that's literally how I learned. I would say I majored in finance and international business, but I never did an MBA. But my master's was at the Comedy Stores, because I was there. I worked there for 2 years, and I literally learned, what it was to be, what was.
So how old were you when you showed up at the Comedy Store?
I was, I'm gonna say 24 or 25 or something like that.
So you went to college?
I went to college, University of Maryland.
And what made you decide you wanted to be a comedian?
It's funny. So I majored in finance. Last semester, I was going to take a class of what I wanted to concentrate on. That was going to be my job for the rest of my life. And I remember taking it. And the first day, I was like, it's such a huge disappointment, because I was like, I hate this. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And I hate it. I literally hate it. That was like the first inkling of like, something wrong. But like anything, you're young, and I was that person that would do pretty much what other people would do or what my family would tell me. So I was like, well, I got to graduate, So I graduated, started working. And as I started working, same thing. I had that same feeling of like everything was the same. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't like what I was doing and all this, this, until I came to the decision. I was like, all right, I got to find something that I like. And I would say I did like a self therapy on my own, because I started going to like Barnes and Nobles and start reading self-help books about trying to find what the hell did I want to do, what I liked. And then I found one book and I started reading. They gave me exercises on how to find, and everything.
What was the name of it?
It's funny because I always recommend it, but I never remember. I have to, it's something about, but even the title says it's like, you don't know what you want to do, but we're going to find out, something like that. It's like,
that's a great title. That's why it sold so many copies and memorable.
But it is really good because I did help me to kind of find out and everything led to comedy. Everything was like, then I started going back.
So the book basically asked you some questions about yourself,
Exactly.
and the answers all said
Comedy.
Basically, you want to be a comedian.
Yeah. And then I realized, and then I was like, wow. And because that was a thing that I never even thought that you could do. It was never even like part of the equation in my life. I never even thought that even being a comedian or a stand-up was, I could do it, So that's when that kind of opened up. Then I started going like, oh, yeah, I like this. And I do watch comedy all the time. And I like making people laugh. And since I was little and all this stuff. And at that point, Whose Line Is It Anyways was very popular. And I loved watching that show. So I remember going online and found a DC improv. They were having like improv classes, and like, so I went in and took it. And when that's when everything changed. When I remember the first day I got there, you start doing the exercises for improv, zip, zap, zap, and all these little things. And I remember going like, I could tell that I was better than everybody else there, and not in an ego way, but just going like, this is easy for me. I was like, this is natural. And I never had that feeling in my whole life. I play sports all the time and I love sports, but I was never good or bad. I was always in the middle. But I felt like I was like, oh, I'm like the best player here. And then I wanted to do it again. That's another thing too. I wanted to kind of keep doing it, and that's another like obsession. And I started going like, oh, okay, this is it. And it started from there,
And there were clubs in Washington and DC to play, right?
But I wasn't. It's funny because I never. So I realized early. I mean, for me, it was like I had such a life there. Like I promoted parties. I had a girlfriend, and I was like, I had like. So my thing was like, if I want to do this for real, I have to get out of DC or Maryland to have my own, to like my only life will be stand up or comedy. So that's why I never did stand up or anything like that in DC. It was just basically I took those improv classes, and then I decided to move to LA because I wanted to be in the Groundlings, and then that's the reason I moved to LA. And then I did, but it was more to be like, I never did stand up in DC pretty much. I learned to do stand up in LA. Yeah.
And your parents didn't have anything to do with the business, did they?
Not at all. No, my parents were typical, like both went to college and both had professional jobs. And my mom was a she graduated as a pharmaceutical marketer, and which is why the reason we moved from Venezuela to DC, because she got a job at the Pan American Health Organization. My dad was an industrial chemist, and he had his own business distributing, medical products.
So your mom sold drugs, and your dad made them in the basement.
Pretty much.
Okay.
That's the nice way. That's what I had to. That's what Tom have to say every time I went to school.
I get it. I'm just translating for the.
It was Breaking Bad before Breaking Bad.
Yes, it was Breaking kind of.
Yes.
But So that's great. And then and how did you know about the comedy? I guess when you get out to LA at the Groundlings, the Comedy Store's something.
Yeah, because I was like, I started doing,
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
1 second. Sorry,
you know
buddy.
what? Also, let me. I'm gonna get my charger because I don't want the thing to die. So let me just. Is that cool if I get my charger quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's your laptop doing? Do you have enough juice?
Oh no.
Oh my god. It's gonna have to be the second time we go to the ER.
Oh man.
I know everyone there.
It's good though, right?
Yeah,
good, yeah.
the camera looks good.
Yeah.
You look a little pale.
I do. I know.
Yeah.
Wow. For sure. Hey, did you get a charger?
Yeah. We're good.
So, well, who'd you watch growing up to get into stand up? Who your point?
So yeah, so my I was always when I would always I became a huge Seinfeld fan when Seinfeld was the show, but then when I started thinking about doing like stand up and comedy, that's when I started delving more into like Jerry's stand up, and then Chappelle when he came out with "Killing Me Softly" when he did the one he shot in San Francisco, I believe, and those. So I started watching. So those I became really fan of them growing up. While I was started just getting into stand up. And then when I moved to LA and started obviously getting more into the world of stand up and doing the open mics and all this stuff, and when I started working at the Comedy Store, I always said, Sebastian was the one that I saw. I was like, oh man, I like what I felt very connected with what he in his the way that he his stand up, but also the way that where he came from. He was kind of like, I felt like, oh, you're doing kind of the same thing that I'm doing in a way, or he did it. So I always felt very connected. So those are the guys that I was like, this is kind of like the career or how I see myself, that I want to not imitate, but kind of like, follow in some way, So yeah, those were the people.
Let me ask you something that I'm curious about. Do you play and do any shows in Spanish speaking areas or what? Because that feels like I know my friend Carmen Lynch does. And I started with Paul Rodriguez and he did that a lot.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm really taking on this year because, I've gotten more also people that follow me and that want to see me perform in Spanish. So I'm starting just to do it. I recently did a show actually at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room in Spanish, and I want to do more. And the thing has been also, as you know, what we talked about before, the reps. There's not, you need the experience and the reps, and for me, that's the thing that's been lacking in LA because there hasn't been that many places to perform. Because I think, for me, Spanish stand-up is still like in what I would think the beginning of what stand-up was in the 70s and 80s, still that era where people are still, even the audience, getting to know what this whole stand-up, thing is, because I think people still don't even know how to behave, audiences in a stand-up. They don't know.
Tell me a little bit about that. What do you mean by that? Do you...
The stand-up that was the thing. I think before the stand-up, I think what the comedy was in Latin America was always about imitations and kind of maybe characters and kind of like very big and all this stuff. It wasn't like real stuff. And I think now I think there's still some of that happens. So when people come to see shows, sometimes I feel just obviously because of my experience always been through the English side of stand-up, when they're watching the show, it's kind of like they're watching like a play or like a one-man show, kind of like where they're very like well behaved and kind of thing. So when you talk to them, they're kind of like, oh, why are you talking so it's still a little bit of that, so it's still very new and only few comics that are doing it right now. More comics are doing it, but it's still few popular comics that do it, so there's not that many people, and also the culture of stand-up is not there yet, I feel like.
And I also think there's also another side of it too, and that's that so many Hispanic people and people from Latin America and that they speak English.
Exactly.
and so
American, I mean, like every time I would go to Venezuela to visit, everybody would watch Friends, Seinfeld, all this. I mean, it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like nobody, it's all, and so people already consume the English consume the English, like comedy. So it's kind of like, so that's why it's like, in a way, it's kind of like, I think teaching these people like, hey, there's also, you can do the same thing in Spanish and kind of like, trying to like get them to kind of understand. It's like, hey, you can.
Well, I just think that doing it here, it's almost like saying, let's take a step backwards, everybody. Whereas they're all going, hey, we speak English all day. Okay. Yeah. We speak English. Why are we doing this? Is this a ritual? And for instance, like, I don't know, there's like, my friend has a club out in Covina, Harry Basil.
Oh,
Have you been out to the Laugh Factory out there?
I haven't been to that one. I was gonna do a show and it didn't work out, but yeah, I know.
It's a great club, but he has, there's a huge, Hispanic audience.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, you would want to go out there. You'd kill there. You'd sell out there. But why would you speak Spanish there?
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Everyone in the audience, all day we're speaking English. Now we're speaking Spanish.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I meant was more like going to Venezuela and Guatemala and Mexico, and I mean those are such huge markets.
No, and that's the reason I'm doing it. I actually did, like, I think 2 months ago, did a show in Mexico City for the first time, and it went well. And yeah, that's the reason I want to do it, so I can definitely cater to those markets. And hopefully my goal would be to like do shows in English and Spanish, one day in English, one show in Spanish, so it's like, because that's the thing that I also have to, for me, that especially because I learned how to do comedy in English, even though I'm fluent in Spanish, I'm still learning to do it in Spanish. I mean, fluent because the timing is different, and the way that the language, you need more words to say something in Spanish and English. So like, so sometimes what I've noticed is like, you don't have to be so fast in Spanish as you do in English, or so like punchy, or like, kind of like, you gotta kind of like sneak in the punchlines, and you can go in tangents and do all this stuff, which is I'm learning from it. But
it's interesting.
And also, like you said, there's so many markets, and any markets are, people pronounce or have different words for different things, so all these things that I also want to keep in mind, because, for example, Venezuelan, like the way that I speak Spanish, sometimes I speak very fast and don't pronounce the S's at the end. So all these little things that you have to kind of like, because I want to make it universal, where like people go see me in Spanish, or same thing in English, and understand the bits no matter what. You don't have to be from a certain, location or city to understand it. And so that's,
and also problem. I wonder if you go to Venezuela or Guatemala or Mexico, is there enough of an English speaking population to do a show in English?
I think there is, because I mean, I think you would have to kind of like, obviously, assess the thing, but it's like what you mentioned before. People consume so much stuff in English, so it's not like there's a lot of people.
No, you mentioned that before, but go ahead.
Yeah,
give that to me.
But I think it
By
can.
the way, a Jewish comic.
The what?
If a Jewish comic, if I spent a lot of time learning how to do a show in Hebrew, there's one place that's going to work. It's not worth it. It's not like there's 13, 14 countries this is going to work in.
That's true.
There's
people that live in different cities, in different countries, that might have, that speak.
They're all speaking English. There's one place that Hebrew is going to work, and half the country is not in any mood to go hear comedy.
Are you fluent in Hebrew?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
He's fluent in both languages.
Okay, well. So you mean you stepped in just to tell me why I'm not as good as this guy?
I had a question. I was curious.
See, this is the problem.
It was a hard flex.
This is the problem, Francisco. Fluent. I can't even speak Hebrew. I'm just saying that, once again, being Jewish has very little upside in today's society. But that's great. That's one.
Yeah.
Hey, so tell me about your special. You did it with 800 Pound Gorilla, huh?
I did. So basically, that special was shot last year at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club.
Oh, really?
In Vegas. Yeah. So Brad, great guy. He wanted to do several like 30-minute specials with an interview included that he wanted to put on his website for the club. You kind of like, he basically, the idea was to be like a Rodney Dangerfield presents kind of thing, for his club. So that's why we shot it over there. So several comics did it. I included myself. But then that whole plan kind of got scrapped. But Brad, being the great guy that he is, he was like, hey, you can have the special. You can do whatever you want with it. It's yours.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, yeah, like amazing.
It looks great.
And then, yeah, it was great. He shot, he produced it, and so then the idea was so then I shot a while back an album, or recorded an album with 800 Pound Gorilla. So I already had that kind of relationship with them. So then we went back and asked them, hey, this is already shot. Basically, all you got to do is, put it, you want to kind of put it to work together on this. And that's how it happened. So basically, that's why it finally came out this year and all this stuff. But that was the whole journey of that. So
I like that. I like 800-pound gorilla. I think they have really good taste, and
Yeah.
I just like the way they put their stuff out.
yeah, no, they've been great to work with. And like, I mean, I did the first album, the only album that I did, I recorded with them at the Ice House, and that's, I mean, is one of those things that I recorded. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. And that's been like a great in terms of revenue, like in terms of like that royalties and residuals that I get from it still.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, because what they're good at is like they already have these relationships with like Sirius XM and all this stuff. So it's like once they go in there, that's where their money is, like satellite radio. That's where you really make, for me, in my case, you make the money in those spins, because Spotify or iTunes, you don't get anything, but for Sirius XM, you get money. And that's helped me, like, every time I get like a monthly thing, I'm like, oh, thank you, this is great. Especially during the pandemic, I was like, oh, that helped me.
And you have to be clean for 800-pound gorilla.
So I remember that when I did the album, they told me, hey, try to make it clean, or don't curse, so we can put it in this, I think forget what was the channel of Laughs USA, I think, is the channel at the set, so, but you don't have to be clean, like they can still, there's several comedy channels that they have. And so the idea for when I did that album, what they told me that just so I could get more spins out of it. And I was like, yeah, fine, I'll do it. But yeah, you don't have to be clean. And this one is not clean, obviously, the one that I did recently. So,
and tell me about your writing process. Do you write a lot?
Yeah. I mean, I constantly write all the time. I mean, I think I've learned that, again, because going back from when I first thought about doing stand-up and everything, I was like kind of sketches, and I was a very big fan of SNL and like that, and characters and doing all this stuff. So all my stand-up, I feel it can be shot, it can be filmed, it's all very like, kind of scenes in a movie or in a show. And that's how I think. I'm like, oh, how can I make this and then kind of elevate it so people are living in that moment? If I'm talking about my mom, or if I'm talking about my wife or something like that. So, but in terms of writing, I always go like, it always comes from truth. Everything. It's funny because even people sometimes after shows, they go like, are you really from Venezuela? I'm like, yeah, why would I be lying about that? That's not even funny to say. Like, I don't understand but everything comes from truth. So like, I always get something that and truth that happened to me or that I saw, I think to me it has to be something organic. I don't know if other comics do, but I can never like somebody gives me a whole idea. It's like hard for me to like, kind of like,
right.
It's like, I had to be that. Again, it doesn't mean that it happened to me, but at least I experienced it, or I saw it, or I got a point of view by watching it or something. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's how I do it.
I totally agree with that. This kid one night, I come off stage and he says to me, I loved your stuff. Can I tell you this really funny story? That'd be a great bit. I'm not a comedian, but it would be the best bit. And I do a lot of crazy, I'm not that clean, I do a lot of stuff. But he was telling me this bit about his girlfriend wanted breast implants, and he agreed that he was going to get them with her, pay for them.
Oh.
And for a while they were just walking around looking at other girls' breasts, going, I like those and those, yeah. And then she got the breasts, and then he was going, those are good. He's going, well, we're not shopping for breasts anymore. We're done.
Yeah.
Like, we get a couch, we don't look at couches, other couches. And it was a really good bit, and he really had it out. And I thought, okay, I'll try that. But I could never get it to work. And I realized it wasn't it didn't come from me.
Yeah.
There was no grounding to it. Even if a little of it came from me.
Exactly. I'm 100% like that. And again, it doesn't have to mean something that really happened to you, but it's like the fire started from you, like that little thing. And to me, that's and I'm by the way, I love getting tags from other comics. That's
Yes.
a different story. Like if the bit's already there and they're like, hey, we should add this, and that's awesome to me. I think that's great because then I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Or like, why don't you try this and this other different tangent or this opposite way? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's that I agree. But for me, in terms of like from scratch, it's got to be stuff that happened to me that I thought about, that I thought it was, it's got to start from me. Because, and I think it's what you said. I think the fact that I would not be able to sell the joke or the bit if it didn't come from me, because it's not, it's not the truth. It's like and also to me constantly doing and have that same energy of performing that bit. I feel like I always tell people, it's the same thing like when you tell a story that happened to you when you're younger, and you always tell it with that same enthusiasm because it was true. It's like, when we got lost and then we got into this accident and we got arrested.
That's right.
Like, you say it because, and you always say it with that same enthusiasm. It's the same thing with a bit. If it's not come from the truth, you can see where it starts going like, oh, now you're just acting. You're just saying something, but it's not real,
Now, let me ask you another thing. Do you do a lot of rewriting?
Yes. I mean, I think what I do is like, I think I've gotten, I think it happened. You obviously know more about this too, but it's like the more you get into knowing what works for you and what's, like where you're, I can make this funny, or this is going to work for me if I do this thing. Like, so you don't have to, like, I don't write that much in the beginning. So what I do is like, if I have an idea that I think is funny, I write okay, this is the idea. I put it in my phone or I write it in a notepad, and then I throw it out in a set. And then I go like, okay, there's something there. And then I go into, okay, now let me try to develop this longer, because to me, it's kind of like putting, fishing, and then like, okay, the fish are biting on that one. Okay, that means it's a good bit. I just got to develop it more because to me,
Right.
like, it doesn't work for me to develop something really long or really, and then trying for the first time, and I spent all this time going like, and the first thing didn't even work or they didn't get it. So that's how, and then I do the rewrites, and then I go, and I'm a person that I write literally like word from word. When I write, I'm like going like this, and then I start the rewrite is I write more all the time. I talk longer. So then I go like, all right, how do I, now what I need to cut to get to the funny fast and to make it, where still people understand the bit and all this stuff. So I always go back and cut and edit, and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's the difference for me a lot of this time than when I was a kid. I would try out new stuff, and if it didn't work, it didn't work, And now I realize if I like something and it kind of works, but it didn't work, it doesn't mean that maybe I should write a new opening to it, or maybe I needs a new punchline, or maybe it just needs a new middle. Maybe I need to come at it a different way.
Yeah,
It like scripts or scenes in a show. It just needs to be punched up and rewritten. And one of the things that I was really surprised, Dave Attell told me in an interview once, he was saying he rewrites the hell out of his jokes. And you wouldn't think that guy rewrites a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because his jokes are so fast, and you almost feel like he makes them up. But he said, no, he'll try all these different versions of them and punchlines, and it'll just stay with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way to do it. And I think what you were saying is like, I feel now too, it's like there's bits too where you believe them in a lot. You're like, I know, like, this is funny. I just gotta find a way to make it funny. And there's like, even like in the one that I for the one of the bits in the special that it was a talking about bananas versus apples. I remember when I started that thing, I was like,
I like the bit of pig in the apple, the bite of the apple, and the apple go like, I'm hard, let's go.
Yeah. So like I remember when I started that bit, I was like, it took me a while to get it to that level. And I remember, but I remember always thinking, I know there's something there. I gotta find, I guess I had to believe that I could make this bit. And there's other bits where you go, for me, that I go and like, let me try. And then I was like, I give it a couple of times. And I was like, okay, there's nothing there. I can just throw my way. So I think there's also that there's ones that you kind of like, okay, I know I can make this is funny. I can make this work. And there are ones where I'm like, I'm throwing something and let's see if the audience likes it. And then like, okay, cool, then I can work. But I don't have that, the passion that I have for other ones, I guess, is kind of thing. It's like, but there's ones that you're like, you know what? I know I can make this. That's, at least for me, it has been the case.
What do you think the biggest mistake you've made so far in stand-up is?
Ooh, it's a good question. How much time you got? I think, well, I think it's going back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Caring. I mean, not take it. I mean, not caring, but like not giving too much of a shit. Like caring too much about the right way to do it. And it's like, this has got to be, and that's like, it's got to be this way, and it's got to be that. And like, remember when I had like showcases, it's like, it's got to be perfect, and it's gonna be, and like, and forgetting the whole point of like, no, you're supposed to have fun, and you can, you have to be real, and you just got to be you, and all this stuff. So I think, and again, it all from experience is, that you start learning from all this stuff, but I think I wish I would have learned that, earlier. So then I wouldn't have to like, in the beginning suffer through so much or care so much about it. Whereas like, because now you go back, I'm like, why did I care about this? It's like, who cares? It's like, it's just another show. It's another taping. It doesn't, all these things that you think are going to change your career and your life. And it's kind of like, no, just do it, just have fun with it. Do the best at that moment. And then when you don't expect it, that's when stuff happens, but it's that has always been that thing that I think that was been the biggest mistake that I've done throughout stand-up, has been the caring of it too much, of what other people think or getting something out of it instead of just doing it.
That's right. And what's the goal for you? I mean, are you going to stay with stand-up or I mean, do you?
Yeah, my goal has always been like, I love the careers of like, Jamie Foxx and Eddie Murphy and, and Jim Carrey and all. I mean, I love acting. That's always been a thing that I've wanted to always do, and that I love doing it. And, and then I directed a short a while back, and I really, really like directing, like that part of it too, like just being able to make good stuff with good people. So like my thing has always been like, yeah, I would love to get to a point where I was like, yeah, I think stand-up's always going to be with me no matter what. I think that's a thing that's like, I'm never going to not stop doing it. You know what I mean? I think it's always going to be with me, but I definitely, acting and writing and directing, that's another thing that I want to develop more and hopefully do more of it, because I love it. I think, and also to work with people and to also to give opportunities to people that you believe them, or you go like, oh, this is really, like to push them, that would be the ultimate goal, to be able to have a name that I could then, produce other people and help other people get into the next level of their career.
Right.
So,
right. That's cool. No, it's really good. I mean, to me, I feel like when I was doing stand-up the first time, everybody wanted to do it to get to something else.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people that are doing it now. Just that's what they do. They're like musicians. I do music. I write.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I kind of used stand-up as a stepping stone. I thought I wanted to do it my whole life, and I walked away from it because the things that I got took too much broadband to also do stand-up, and have a family and have a life and do heroin and hookers, all those things at one time.
Yeah.
You know,
you guys gotta,
it's a lot. It fills a day.
Yeah.
But
Especially with heroin, that fills the whole day pretty much. Right?
Well, the hookers took a lot of time too. But 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 I no, seriously, I just I think the mistake I made was not staying with it in some form.
Mhm.
Even though I'm glad I didn't.
Mm. Okay.
Even though I'm glad I didn't, because when I came back, it was so fresh to me.
Yeah.
But I really do think that there's something to be said. You know, Leno used to always say, "Don't quit your act. Don't quit your act, Binder." You know, but but I do think there's something to say about always keeping your toe in the water or really close to the water.
Yeah. And for me, I think stand up is, again, it's the first thing that I was good at in my life. You know what I mean? It's the first thing that I'm like, oh man, I'm, again, that I mentioned that I'm better than the norm. And
That's
but
right.
it's so that it's like, that's why I feel I have to do it all the time. But also it's also very therapeutical for me. It's like I don't go to therapy. I don't do it. But to me, that's my therapy. That's my, when my dad passed away, I remember going up right away. I mean, when I girlfriend broke up with me, so those are how I go through also my emotional, I need to, that's how I release all my, emotions and that's my, and I always feel like as a stand-up, we're a different breed. We're like, I always tell people, if you want to be a stand-up, it's like we think we're a different breed in terms of we're always thinking about something funny, even in the worst circumstances. That's when you have that kind of like gift or something, because and that's me, and that's why when I go through bad stuff, my way to process it is through funny, is through stand up, is
That's
through
right.
going there. I'm not necessarily talking about what happened to me that day, but it's like it's just even being getting those laughs and that adrenaline of getting in there, and where you're just truly yourself. I think that's, to me, that's always been my thing. I'm like, I feel like when I'm stand up, I'm like the truest of the true of who I am. We always have this society, we have to put different masks in different situations because that's part of it. But with stand up, it's like this is completely who I am, how I think, how I process stuff, and just having that outlet. I think it's a way to, it's a great way for me to kind of live life while dealing with all the other stuff.
That's great. And are you really engaged?
Yeah, man. Well, that was last year, so now I'm married. So yeah,
You're married?
yeah,
Oh, that's great.
married, gonna be almost a year now in August, to a North Carolina girl that we met in acting class, that's the only good thing about that acting class.
Yeah, that's right. And where do you live?
So I live in the Valley Village.
Can we get an address? You write an
Sure,
address
yeah, yeah.
down.
You ready? You want my
And just a picture of the
Social
house.
security number too?
Yeah, yeah. So just one of my
Yeah.
one of my favorite podcast stories ever is Jeff Ross had this podcast for a while called Thick Skin, and Saget was on,
Ah,
and it was in Jeff's basement, and the day Doris.
Oh.
Sorry.
hold on, I'm gonna also.
It was the day Doris Day died,
Oh.
or maybe 2 days after. And Saget's on the thing, and he's saying, "Man, I always loved her. I always loved her, man. When she was so hot when I was a kid." And Jeff goes, "So did you want to bang her?" And he says, "I can't say that on a podcast." He goes, "No, it's just you and I sitting here. Come on." And he goes, "No, I can't. I can't." He goes, "Yeah, you can. You can. Tell me about what you felt about." And Bob, Bob was always so worried about that, even though on a nightclub stage he would be really dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff has him really convinced for 1 minute that that's just you and I in the basement. Nobody listens to this podcast. You can say whatever you want. And I kind of did want to bang her, you know. You wanted to bang Doris Day? That's sick, Bob. It's just so funny, you know. You
That's
just
funny. Yeah.
you let sometimes you go too far and you let everything down. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we have my address. I'm on Baker Street. You know, I'm on Baker. We're right at the corner there.
Yeah.
But
Man, that was awesome. I wish I would have had a chance to meet Bob. I mean, I always heard great things. Everybody talks so great about him. So
he was
would've
the
been-
best. He was
yeah,
the best.
yeah. I think I only saw him
But
once.
he was a nut. My other favorite story about Bob, I loved him so much. I had this restaurant for a while. Me and a couple of Detroit guys, Tim Allen and Sam Raimi, and we had a place called Coney Dog on Sunset Boulevard,
Oh, cool.
and hot dog joint. And Bob comes in right when we opened, and he goes, you know, he was such a good friend. He goes, I'm gonna text about this because I got like 1.2 million followers on Instagram. He took a picture of us together. I go, well, text it. He says, I gotta wait until I leave. I go, why? He goes, I can't press send while I'm here. People know where I am.
Mm.
And I said, Bob, you really think like 1.2 million people are going to be coming out of the woodwork because you're at a hot dog joint on Sunset Boulevard?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, not 1.2 million, but I could get mobbed. And I, no, you can't. No, you can press it. I'm telling you, no one will come. And he was so serious. I have to be already in the car. I'll press it in the car. And it was so serious. It was the only time I ever saw him get serious about anything. And then he calls me in the car. He goes, okay, I press send. I said, all right, good. And there, you know, Bob, now I'm going to get mob people coming in here from all over the place wanting to know what it was like when you were in here. And he goes, well, you can just tell them that I had a good time. I go, I'm kidding.
That's funny.
But he was a great guy. He was the best. But anyway, so tell me, are you traveling? Are you on the road now? What's going on?
Yeah. I'm on the road. I got shows coming up. Doing one in Bellflower, California on August 10th, and then Phoenix, August 23rd, Houston, August 30th, Orlando, September 19th, and New York, October 4th, and then Madrid. I'm doing one show in Madrid, 19 and 20, one in English and one in Spanish.
And what's the best place for people to pick it up on your website or?
Yeah, website or Instagram and TikTok and all those things is at F Ramos Comedy, or my website is franciscoeramos.com.
And don't you always travel with another guy too, or a lot of times?
So I do it, like, for example, it's once in a while we do shows together with Carlos Santos, which is another comic and actor as well that we're buddies with, and we do like the one in Bellflower is going to be with Carlos. So yeah, sometimes we do shows together where we do stand up and then we go up on stage and kind of riff with the crowd at the end. So like it's kind of like more of an interactive show, but it's fun because we have great chemistry and we kind of like we've been doing it for a bit now, so we kind of like know each other's kind of like, you know, timings. And
I noticed you're not packing it up and traveling with a lot of Jewish guys, Francisco. I keep looking on Instagram. I'm going, you know, one of these days it's going to be Francisco and the rabbi, but I don't see it.
Well, I'm waiting. I mean, like, I'm waiting for more people to. Hey, I'll do it. My roommates for 5 years was actually Jewish and Colombian. You know, it was he was born in Israel. His name is Hanak.
Wow.
Serebrennik. And then I know one of my good buddies is that I co-wrote that short with is also Jewish. So it's funny because I feel like I've a lot of my friends and even my man, you know, they're all Jewish, and I feel like we're all both. I think I connect a lot with because I'm very that way of almost very kind of like looking at, you know, I'm always worried about stuff, you know. That's me. So I'm like, I connect a lot with the Jewish community.
my thing has always been, I've always felt this from you, because I started as such a kid. I just connected with comics. I always thought we're our own minority, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
100%.
like Paul Rodriguez was my roommate, and Damon Wayans was one of my best friends, and all the Wayans, just all these comics. I just would think it was just, we'd go out for, to Cantor's after a show, and it was just like, it's like, look at all these, look at that fucking normal guy.
Yeah, exactly. I call them norms. Yeah, it's like it's the same thing. When I first moved to LA, when I first ran into, remember hanging out at the comedy with open micers, which my class of open micers were Gerard Carmichael and Tony Hinchcliffe and Matt Edgar and Josh Adam Myers, and Angelo Bowers passed away. He was going to be great too. But it's funny, like when I first met people, I was like, oh, okay, this is who I am. Is this whole thing of like where everything's just about riffing and making fun of each other, and there's no lines, and it's hard for me to then remember when I first went back to Maryland to visit my friends. It was like, oh, I couldn't joke the same way with them.
Oh,
it was like, oh, this is a different. They're living in another bubble. I'm like, and then I will have to remember, okay, I can, and then I go, okay, yeah, these are normals.
That's right.
Yeah, the only demographic I'll never date is comedian.
Yeah. Oh, great. Great. Well,
No offense.
Well, I was trying to set you up, but then I heard you were married. So
yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know what to say. But yeah.
By the way, comedians, as a rule, you're basically the only demographic we don't date, which is women that don't date comedians.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really the only thing we'll take is women that don't want anything to do with us.
Yeah.
We'll take.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on. And if you ever want to, add anything you want to plug, we're building a following on this thing. Every week we get better and bigger and all over the place. So we'll do it what we can to spread the word about your special. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me. When I got the call, I was very excited. I'm a very big fan of you and, of your career. And yeah, thanks. It's been a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much.
All right, good. We'll see you around, I'm sure.
I'll
Yes.
see you at the pumpkin patch in the fall.
Yes, for sure.
He's great.
He is great.
He's great,
I like
and he's really great on stage. He's got his own way about him that I like, and he's fun. That's one thing, man, I love about being back into the stand-up world is getting to see all these guys and know these guys. And check his special out on 800-Pound Gorilla. They really have some great stuff. Nate Bargatze actually turned me on to them, and he turned me on this special he directed with Greg Warren. Is on there, who I love, Greg Warren. But I just get to meet there's so many great comedians. Last night I worked with Kira Sultanovich. She was fantastic. We got to get her on here. It's just a lucky time for stand-up comedy fans. And you got this great podcast all about the art of stand-up comedy. What more could you want? Great stand-up comics, a podcast devoted absolutely to stand-up comedy, and a not so bright producer.
And me.
You're the producer. You're the not so bright producer.
Got it.
And that's it. And I'm at the Laugh Factories on Monday nights. Mike Binder and friends. We're doing some good shows, and we're up at Apple and Spotify and my Substack.
See, I'm useful sometimes.
You are. And STANDUPWORLD, and that's it. Have a great week. Thank you very much.
Bye. Love you.
Love you.